guys, this is Lachette with Scarlet Moon Creations, and excuse me while I adjust my camera a bit. Um, I'm back with a new video. This is a new type of video. I've never done one of these before. This is a video response video for a tag created by Jessica Star, the Story Witch. And if you've watched my videos before, you know I've mentioned her a couple of times, definitely mentioned in my favorites videos, and the April favorites will be coming soon, I promised. But she's one of my favorite YouTubers and relatively new like me. I kind of think of Jessica as a YouTube friend. So when I saw that she created her own tag in honor of her upcoming early June birthday, I was very interested and watched the video that she did for the tag. And the tag, before I forget to mention it, is Decks for Decades. So hashtag Decks for Decades, and you can put it in the search bar on YouTube to find other people's video responses as well. But I'll link Jessica's original video in my description down below. So yeah, I watched the video, and I've never done a tag before, a YouTube tag. Honestly, it was only through watching Jessica's video responses to other people's tags that I even learned that they existed. And so I was like, oh, this is interesting. Maybe I'll try it one day, but I don't know exactly how. I actually learned what VR meant in the YouTube world, video response, thanks to Jessica. So, yeah. The tag is, you're supposed to pick a deck for each decade of the life that you live. So the decks should represent that decade in some way, shape, or form. And how many decks depends on how many decades you've lived, or however many you feel like sharing. So first, happy birthday or upcoming birthday, Jessica. I'll probably say something when we get much closer to the day, but happy birthday. Also, I am 33, turning 34 this year, if I'm remembering correctly. I should probably just do the math. But I think that's right, yeah. And so I binge watched a bunch of people's videos, because as soon as I watched Jessica's video, I was like, this is interesting. It's very introspective, this tag. And I was like, oh, but I don't know what I should do. Like, I had some ideas pop in my head instantly, but the way I encapsulate certain periods of time in my life, in my past, it's not by decade. I mean, I guess that's easy because, rounded up, round numbers, 10 decades, that kind of thing. But that's not how my life kind of fit itself. So I was wondering, what, and then I am early to mid in my third, fourth decade. Yeah, I don't know, guys. So, as you can see from my verbal gymnastics here, or not, my verbal tripping here, that I wasn't sure how to fit my decades and what decks I should pick. So I binge watched a bunch of people's videos, and yeah, I'm gonna go with my original idea. So I am 33 right now, almost 34. Yeah. So yeah, I'm 33 and a half, I guess. And I I thought it would be weird to just have a deck just for the last 3.5 years. I don't know. That didn't feel like enough for me to even speculate about how the rest of this decade was going to go. So I was thinking, logically, as science tells us, most kids don't even remember their first 3 years. I sure don't. But what I'm going to do is my first deck is going to go from birth to age 13, and then my next deck will be from 14 to 23, and then my last deck will be from 24 to now. So those are the decades I decided. I was going to skip my first 3 years, but because I don't remember them, but things happened, and it definitely fits with my first deck. So let me jump in finally. So I was gonna do this like top down overhead, but I didn't set up for that, so excuse me while I handle my cards oddly, because I'm not used to holding them like this. So the first deck is the Deviant Moon Tarot. If you followed me, especially with 31 Days of Tarot, this is not a new deck for you to see. This is, I believe, goodness, this was my first deck ever. This deck represents, like I said, from birth to now. I was born a little bit premature, and only a little. The umbilical cord wrapped around my neck while I was in the womb, so they had to get me out there a little bit quicker than normal. So I came out, I started out with some strife. I don't like that word, but I can't think of another one. And what else? Then at age 3, actually, I got lead poisoning, and it was pretty bad. I was in the hospital for a little while. Don't remember none of this stuff, guys. Yeah, so from there's like just a lot. I can't really do this while holding the card, so I'm just gonna talk. My early years are pretty turbulent. Honestly, up until 13. Like 10, I kind of, in my head, I group things by like school. So 10 is like 5th grade, elementary school, maybe the beginning of middle school, depending on you. So, I don't remember exactly what age, but well below 10, I was molested. My father also lost his job while I was in elementary school. We were kicked out of our apartment and had to move. And beyond that, I had a really emotional time at school. And the thing is, you don't make these connections until you start, reflecting on them as an adult later on. And I'm not going to go into the connections now. It's just like I got into a lot of fights, a lot of very bloody, injurious fights, not for myself so much as for others. There's a lot of times that I don't remember because I just remember being so emotional and so upset. I saw red, just a lot of it. And that kind of ended when I left elementary school, but not quite. I left because we had to move. We got kicked out of our apartment, and we went to the shelter system for a little bit, and that was oddly enough, Pretty nice. It was nice to kind of like leave that emotional stuff behind, or attempt to, for a little bit. I remember that summer between 10th and 11th grade, like, it was okay. It wasn't the best, but it was pretty good, and I was happy. And then I went to junior high school, and then for like 5 minutes I was like, okay, it's a new start, but it wasn't. So someone from my elementary school wound up at the same middle schools, completely different area, and she had remembered me as this girl who, was a hard ass and started a lot of stuff. And she told all her friends, which were like the popular kids. And meanwhile, I had turned over a new leaf and become a better person. Obviously this girl didn't know any of the stuff I was going through. I didn't really understand what I was going through. So, like, I had this reputation and then couldn't back it up, because even in I didn't want to fight. I was just so emotional. It wound up being that way. So there was a lot of bullying. This was also like the early 90s by this point. Early 90s, and like we lived across the street from a high school that was like blood territory. There was a lot of gang fights in the area we lived in. It was just, so I was going to school with some really hard kids, and I guess couldn't back up my shit. And yeah, so the other part of why this deck kind of represents me, it's kind of dark. I recognize that. It doesn't bother me though. Sorry, one of these cards was upside down, and I'm just like, what? I know this deck puts a lot of people off, and that's okay. I understand. It doesn't put me off. I just had an early intro to the harshness of life, I guess. I don't know. I also feel like this deck also represents the rest of me. At home, I was like this cute introverted girl who was kind of odd. Not odd. I guess family-wise and definitely neighborhood-wise. Back then it wasn't cool to be like a nerd or dorky or anything like that. And, my dad raised me on Star Trek and Star Wars and comic books, and my mom raised me on epic fantasy novels and whatnot. I read a lot. Definitely by junior high school, and maybe earlier than that, I was reading stuff well above my age level and grade level. And not so much, sorry about that, not just in difficulty, but also in maturity. I was reading some really dark and even very sexual stuff at an early age, and it was just, my way to socialize with these characters. So I really enjoyed, fiction, fantasy, science fiction, that kind of thing, and this deck represents that as well. Being different, my favorite, even till now, my favorite comic book characters are the X-Men, and don't ask me to choose one because I can't. I just, like, the whole storyline is, these are mutants and how they're learning to live and be themselves in this world. They're not normal, and that's kind of how I saw myself. As a kid, I was not like all the others around here. So that was up until 13, and then I escaped into high school to the other side of the city, actually. Luckily. Because, yeah. And the deck I choose for my next decade is the Llewellyn Tarot. Age 14, or maybe 13. I don't know. The thing is, I'm also a late baby, so I'm one of the younger kids. Um, High school and college, basically. The Llewellyn Tarot. This is the back, and this deck is representing my second decade. Oh, come on. And it's, I got to relax. I didn't have to, sorry, my whole deck is upside down. I got to relax, and be me, explore new things, new people, new ideas, um, away from the constant strife and worry and whatnot. For the most part, because also in my first 13 years, we moved a lot. We moved 3 times during this decade as well, and technically four since I moved out on my own. Towards the end of that, but this it is not showing up very well. Let me try on this side. Sorry, it's not showing up very well in this lighting. It's a watercolor imagery, and high school was nice. I went to an advanced high school. Or not advanced, but there's a name for it that's escaping me right now. I'm having a hard time talking while showing cards. Um, so yeah, like education wise, things got better, a little bit more fitting for me. I'm not like a genius or anything like that. Uh, I don't know. It was also, I made friends. I got to just be myself. There were a lot of other kids that were into what I was into. There was more of a mix of um, nationalities and ethnicities at this school, which I loved. The same with college. And honestly, also, I wasn't like the tallest, skinniest girl anymore. I'm 5'11". I'm well above the average height for a woman in the United States, as big a country as we are. And so I'm like, that kid was always at the back of the line because I was the tallest. But I was also super skinny, super skinny. Um, and I didn't start really gaining weight that wasn't height until my senior year of high school, which I will always remember. I think I gained like 10 pounds in like 6 months, and it was amazing. I went from like a double zero to, I don't even, three, a size three. And I know there are people out there that have other issues, and maybe they would have been happy with that. Um, but I didn't hate it. I was just like, because I was constantly hungry, um, thanks to my metabolism. And we lived in a house for a while. Um, I don't know what else to say. Oh yeah, so then I graduated high school, and it was great. I went to college, um, and that was great too, even though I picked one school one semester and then switched to another one. That was fine. It was all about exploring. Like, I had this time to like think about me and what I wanted and what I wanted to do with my future, and that was new to me. Um, and this was also, um, I started reading in high school a couple of book series by female authors that kind of felt like I raised me somewhat. Um, they're um, urban fantasy. So this is like modern day um, magic and witchcraft and supernatural stuff, which I had not explored before. Um, and it was like, oh, and these books, I kept coming across more and more of them, and I was like, wait, well, is this stuff real? Um, in college, I like sat down and really thought about, how I felt about my religion at that point, which was several forms of Christianity. And I was really drawn to a lot of the stuff I saw in these books. Um, I was also, oddly enough, because this is up until 23, I think, yeah. So, um, after college, I got a job right away. I had done an internship, and 2 weeks after the internship was over, they were like, we want to hire you. And it was a place I really enjoyed working at, and a place I really had wanted to work at once I left college, the New York City Parks Department, as an event planner. And it was one of the greatest times of my life career-wise. I can honestly say I enjoyed every moment of it except the end. And my coworkers, including my bosses, are still my friends to this day, and I'm thankful for them. Um, but like in college, I was like, I need to explore more of this whole witchcraft thing, and I got some books. I got like for dummies books, witchcraft for dummies, paganism for dummies, and astrology for dummies, all things I was really interested in, from these fiction books, these urban fantasy books. And also, while I made this like vow to myself, like once I get a steady income going and I have my apartment, which I got, I am going to take some classes or figure out some way to um, learn from other people about witchcraft and paganism to see where in there works for me, where under the umbrella works for me. And I haven't looked back since then. So it was a magical time. Also, the other reason why I picked this deck is because I actually worked with the Welsh Tourism Board and the Welsh consulate a lot when I was working for the Parks Department. We helped them with a lot of their events every year. And I don't know, I don't even remember how. I always liked Welsh things. But that gave me a lot of knowledge that I didn't have before about Wales and its history. And I fell even more in love. So this deck is the Llewellyn Tarot deck. It was created by the Llewellyn Publishing, and the major arcana are based off of Welsh stories and mythology. Like this card is the Empress, and it's represented by Rhiannon, who is a queen in Welsh mythology. In the Mabinogion. So when I came across this deck, and I think this is probably the second deck I ever got. This is Death, and it's the Wild, this is the Horn one, and the Wild Herdsman. That is not, I was looking at it backwards. I also just love the artwork on it. Caradwyn, the Priestess. The first college I went to, it was more focused on art, and in high school I did a lot of artwork. I quite enjoyed it, and fortunately after I left I didn't do much for a very long time. The Universe, Kader Idris. So that's why this deck represents that decade. It was a really good time. I was loving myself. I felt, um, by the time I hit college, like halfway through college, I was a size 10, and I was just like, I am the sexiest thing in this world. At least to me, there was like flirting and dating and like exploring and learning about other cultures through these people that I met and made friends with, and getting my first job, and just being connected and one with the world, and like things going right for seemingly the first time in my life. My choices. Third decade. This has turned out longer than I thought, because it's hard for me to show cards and talk at the same time. So, third decade, 24 to now. I kind of have two decks, but they're related. And you can see the boxes behind me. It's the Fairies Tarot and the Heart of Fairies. Now, the first one I got is the Heart of Fairies, and this is the back. They're made by the same person, Brian Froud. If you like anything about fairies, you know Brian Froud. I like his fairy artwork. I had, to continue somewhat of an underlying theme of books, I've always enjoyed like fairies and elves in fiction, but not like the cute, pretty kind. Not the Disney kind, really. I mean, though they're okay, but we're a superior race, and not everybody's good, and it's here for you. I'd like my fairies to have more depth, to have some darkness, and oddly enough, to be very human. Not everybody is nice, not everybody's good, not everybody is has your best interest in heart. They have their best interest, and duh, why wouldn't they? Why shouldn't they? But so yeah, this deck, I had seen Brian Froud's artwork, and then I was at a fairy festival, oddly enough, and he was there, and he was selling his decks, and I was not planning to buy any decks when I went, but I was like, I have to have this deck. So I got it. I lost my job at the Parks Department. I was laid off. Things were not going great. The Parks Department is a government agency, and the mayor changed, and so did things. Sorry about that. So life got a little darker for a long time. I lost my job. I could not get a job. I couldn't even get a job interview for years, at least. And I I did look for other jobs. Just after a while, it's just like I need some kind of money, and I can barely get any of those. Like no one would answer me, and so there was a whole depressive and anxiety state for me. I wound up being evicted. I did eventually get another full-time job, but it was not in time. And I had already owed so much rent, I just couldn't do it anymore. It'd be nice if I noticed the upside down cards before I put them up, right? This was a time also where I parted ways with the first group of pagans and witches that I had really connected with. Not every single one of them, but a lot. Those in that particular group, there was a lot of drama, there was a lot of stress, there was a lot of disrespect, and I was going through shit in my life, and I could not, I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't getting enough to eat, I was volunteering to help, and then not being appreciated. Are you kidding me? So I did the best that I could and parted ways as nicely as possible and worked through that. It was for me, I guess, the start of a lot of shadow work. Cause it was like 3 or 4 years without real work. So yeah, on the other hand, I started a business in there because I was like, well, no one's hiring. Because this was also during, the recession, um, though the latter end. And I was like, no one wants me. I'm just going to have to make my own thing. And I did. My creativity started coming back. It gave me a lot of personal joy and just like everyday happiness to create things. And these things, Scarlet Moon Creations was born in this decade. I What else? I had to move back in with my parents. Like it was just a whole life shift. And a lot of it was dealing with what didn't go right, and the negative emotions that kind of built up and the bad habits that built up. So sorry. It's like you can't even guess these things are happening. Um, I just, I felt like a failure as an adult. Um, and on the other hand, I started, getting a little bit closer with the magical, mystical, spiritual side of things. Eventually, the job I got, I wound up traveling around the country, around the world, basically for free because my boss paid for everything except, all the essentials except for, like, non-essentials. I don't know what I was going to say. But, it was a journey that I only recently feel like I'm coming back from. I've come back from, made my way through, learned a lot about self-care, new habits, productivity, um, got deeper into tarot and divination here, just feeling magical, having spirit guides, and um, learning various mental health techniques and physical health. So now, once I passed 25, my metabolism noticeably slowed down, and this is like the second time in my life where I gained a bunch of weight, and I'm not fat. I don't see myself that way. I don't see most people who are called fat as fat, but whatever. Um, I'm a little bit overweight for my height, but not a lot. It's just, I'm not moving as easily as, I was when I was the sexiest thing on this earth. Cracking myself up. I've never said that out loud, so that's funny to me. Um, so yeah, just new areas. With that old group, I had become a high priestess, and with that, they gave me a letter that if I wanted to, I could go and become a legal wedding officiant with the city, because that's what matters, not the spiritual aspect, but the legal stuff as far as the government is concerned. And I wasn't going to, but then out of the blue, one of my very good friends, they were getting married, and that part wasn't out of the blue, but the part where the person who was supposed to be marrying them backed out 2 weeks before the wedding was out of the blue. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, I can go and just file this letter, and then I'll be the officiate. And there you go. And that opened another door for me, marrying people and doing hand-fast things. And just meeting all these new people, learning all these different types of paganism. Also more recently joining a coven, reconnecting with family, joining a coven. And this is the Fairies Oracle deck. And again, Fairies by Brian Froud. And I got this one after the Heart of Fairies, even though the Heart of Fairies came out second. But I'm showing them both because they are similar. And it was just like, this is a journey of, building myself back up, relearning who I am and who I want to be, being more focused. And I did a lot of shadow work during this time as well, and continue to do so. Being more confident about my business and about myself, being more out there as a witch, as a pagan. And like the first, sign that was a good idea was my cousin hitting me up on Facebook like, "You're a witch?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So, and then winding up joining his coven. And I talk more about that in the coven video. That's on my channel. So, and just like feeling so at home, learning from our high priestess and high priest, and learning more about business and connecting with, with the connecting with your tribe. That's the term I don't like, but that's going around. With your target market, and like learning about self-care and who, what's best for me, and how to share that more with others. That's what this decade has been about up until now, from 24 to today. Creating new ambitions and new goals, and knowing, and yes, this is a blank card. It's the fairy guide. You're supposed to draw something on it. I have not drawn anything on it, but I know who my fairy guide is and what they look like. Reconnecting with art and with writing things down, journaling, and being more creative and intentional. It's not all wonderful and great, but it is life and helpful. So, and that's what I want to be. I want to help other people improve their lives, their daily lives. So, oops. That is my response to Decks for Decades. This is way longer than I thought it would be. Again, yeah, I'm not so great at the whole holding up cards and talking at the same time. Talking tends to take up all my processes. So I'm going to end here because I guess the guy with the motorcycle in front of my building is back. Warm weather brings out all the loud people. And thank you, Jessica, for creating this challenge. I really appreciated it. I hope no one minds how deep this went, but it was interesting to learn more about myself. I might revisit this once I actually turn 40 to see if things fit a little bit better, but I doubt it. It's just, I guess I have themes for sections of my life, and it is what it is. I guess we'll see what the next 6 or 7 years, 6.5 years brings. Thank you for watching. If you would like a reading from me, because I don't have these cards just because, you can find the link in the description down below to my Etsy shop. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.